I think when I saw David Bowie.
You saw him?
I did. I traveled back into the 1970s and I saw him do Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And it was incredible.
You traveled back.
Yeah, it was backstage. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I jetted back to, the 2000s. And I was like, I can have the musical, make the music, create the lyrics, and create community around transformation and being queer, and not even just in sexuality, but just in how we see the world. Let's go outside the mundane and what people know us as every day. Leave room to allow yourself to transform.
She was a cripple. She was a cripple. With good coochie, you wanna do me and not use me for disability. You gon' push me.
Yo, so we back in here for another edition of F-ya-Motha. In that video you saw before I played this reject video was Jonelle Monae. Talking about she went to the 70s and saw David Bowie playing. Now, I'm gonna keep it 100. I didn't watch the whole podcast episode that was on Revolt, nor do I care to watch it. But you should be able to contextualize anything that you hear, even in a soundbite. There's not a lot of shit that I've said in these podcast episodes where even if you took a clip, shit would make sense. Everything that I say is within context. So even if you took a soundbite, it would make sense in the sense that I'm saying it. This shit makes no sense because, first of all, how the fuck did you go to the 70s? And we don't have time machines. And it's the same broad that was talking about you don't have to push sex. And I think I did a podcast episode 2 years ago. She flashing her titties at almost 40 years old. Now, Google said that she's 39. I did a video on her 2 years ago. She was 40. So somebody lying here. All I know is we just gonna say it's safe to assume that she a middle-aged woman, and I don't like to wear that title because I don't look or feel middle-aged, but technically speaking I am. And I can honestly say that a lot of women that are middle-aged are nutty. They've been operating, especially if they operated like this in their 20s and 30s, they've been operating on this nutty, delusional roller coaster way of thinking for so long that now it's ingrained in their person. That's who they are, in their personality. They say shit and then they bring the cheerleader that's in their head is saying, yeah, that makes sense, and they roll with it. See, in your 20s, when you have a cheerleader in your head, your thoughts, and they say, yeah, that shit sound about right, there's another thought in your brain, another cheerleader that says, nah, slow that shit down. Maybe that sounded crazy. This is giving under the impression that you a sensible person, you got all your working faculties, and you're not insane. Somewhere in the 30s it happens, but the other voice in your head be losing the fight, and in 40s, motherfuckers just rock with shit. Now, not me, because I've kept a firm handle on logic and common sense, right? Shit that makes sense. And I don't go with things that make sense to me. I go with things that make sense to anybody around. If you're around and the shit don't make sense, I ain't doing it. I'm not gonna say it. I ain't gonna do it. And there are some things that might sound sweet in your head. There's some things that you should just keep to yourself. Like there's some things that Batman and the CIA couldn't waterboard out of me. However, some people let the intrusive thoughts win. She seems like one of those people. She double speaks. She's a hypocrite. She contradicts herself. She's what we call a good girl 304. They pose like they're good girls. They're a house pet. A predator posing as a house pet, right? They're really skanks, but they pose like they're good girls. The only people that actually get to see them in their all full skankiness is niggas or studs that pry the panties off. Everybody else, like us, the spectators, especially me, we have reason to believe that that's what she is, but we don't know. In the words of Carlito, they think, but they don't know. Because if they knew, we'd already be dead. So I don't know for sure, but once again, I can bet my soul she's a predator posing as a house pet. She is an undercover 304. She's off her rocker. Either that or somebody in that room should have been like, what drugs are you taking? Not only that, David Bowie's been dead for, I want to say, since 2016 or 17, some shit like that. He's been dead for a minute. We don't know that time machines exist or not. I like to think they don't, because if they did, we'd know. However, they just said that we have 2 moons. So I don't put shit past this world, right? As I get older, I told a friend this when I turned 35 or 30. The older I get, it seems like somebody's pulling the veil slowly. Like it's more to this thing called life. I don't know, but I got a feeling, right? When you was in your 20s, you took everything for face value. So maybe she did time travel. However, because there can't be no confirmation that she did, I'm going with the latter, that she's a nutty bitch that's in her middle ages and she's just an undercover 304. We just gonna go with the most logical conclusion. Because I don't do drugs and I frown down on people that do it, and weed is not a drug, but everything else is. Yeah, I frown down on people that do drugs. So if she's on that narcotic, she needs to seek assistance. And because I haven't seen a song that she's put out since I don't know when, 2011, one has to ask, how is she making money? Like whenever I see one of these singers from the early to mid 2000s, like I think she blew up in like 2010, some shit like that. 15 years later, how are you still viable in music? Because I ain't seen a product, I ain't seen a video, and I ain't heard a song. So it's safe to say that she probably ain't an undercover 304. She probably out in the open 304. She is like that one girl, Saweetie. They out here being sex escorts. And I got reason to believe Diddy wasn't the only nigga in on it. He might have flew some niggas in to bang his chick, but he was pimping chicks in the industry. Cassie, she's probably getting pimped. Saweetie's getting pimped. Every chick that you see from the mid 2000s or early 2000s, they ain't putting out a record, but somehow still continues to be in the limelight. And we haven't heard nothing about her being broke, destitute, bankrupt, or nothing. How you generating money? Is this bitch going on tours with Tyler the Creator, headlining? I don't know. I don't watch TV, so then there's that. I could be way off basis, and maybe she is viable in the mainstream. However, I'm on social media. I don't see shit. Social media is the streets. I ain't heard one song by this motherfucker, so I gotta know who her benefactors is. Probably some white men with long money, and she's on that narcotic. Any of it, if you think I'm bugging, for all the people out there that say, you don't know what you're talking about, and yeah, it's called commentary. And that video that I played before all this shit about the chick being a cripple, they just letting any filth just get put on there. And I think this is an old video, but even if still, like, don't get me wrong, if you're in a handicap and you think you getting handicapped, but this is a tragedy. Biggie and Tupac here, the shit they be rolling around in their grave. The originality of the younger generation sucks. Even when they aren't being carbon copies, they're garbage. In any event, if you like this, you know what to do. Is out.